We have Mike Ejiofor. He's a security expert and former director of the Department of State Services. He joins us now in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome to
on Newsnight tonight.
Thank you for having me.
First, let's even start off with the drivers of organized crime, not only in Africa, but especially in the African sub-region, the West African sub-region, that is. What exactly are the drivers? I mean, we heard from former Chief of Army Staff there, Burutai, that political instability is one of the major issues. Do you want to speak more to that?
Yeah, incidentally, I was at that conference, and you can see there are a lot of drivers, on this insecurity. You can talk of, like the keynote speaker pointed out, you have unemployment, you have youth resiveness, and a whole lot. It's much because, like youths, 70% of Nigerians are youths, and youth unemployment is a major driver on these very issues. And the earlier the government takes decisions, on how to combat these crimes, these emerging crimes, because some of them are, like you said there, are not even named.
All right.
You think of organized crimes, you think of 419, you talk about area boys, and the latest one now, which is, I think I will use the opportunity to draw attention of the people, economic problems. You see, they talk of people coming into the country asking you to borrow money online, Ponzi schemes. Ponzi schemes. You borrow money online, you send them your contacts, and at the end of the day, they will threaten to send messages to your contacts, begin to blackmail you. So this is one of the major problems we're also facing, apart from the general problems facing the country virtually in all the geopolitical zones, agitations, political agitations, talk of terrorism, robbery, and all the rest of them. So there are many problems.
So when the West African leaders gather together, the ECOWAS leaders, and say, look, we're going to provide, funding to combat terrorism, is that all it will really take to combat terrorism and organized crime within the region, or what more, really?
There are lots of things to do, like arising from the conference that was held today. Government should provide employment for the youths. See, the economic hardship is biting very hard.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier, but then you already said, you touched on that already. But let's back up a little, because we were talking about economic hardship and unemployment and all that. What about Nigerian confraternities and campus gangs are highly sophisticated and they operate worldwide? How can we go back to the grassroots and tame this ugly tide?
Yeah, like I was saying, this ugly tide. For instance, today, you talk about the increase in fuel, increase in PMS, to 600 and something. These are major problems. They are purely economic. And I think in the sub-region, like the president said, in fact, I learned one thing today, which was also highlighted in your intro. I thought possibly the greatest challenge is the issue of kidnapping, because the effect on kidnapping, it's personal to you as a person, unlike the general issues where you have mass killings, mass abduction, and all this thing. But the former Chief of Defense Staff, Chief of Army Staff, General Buratai, also pointed out, arising from the statement made by the president in ECOWAS as a chairman of the ECOWAS heads of government, that coup is also organized crime.
Ah, there you go.
There is coup, it's organized crime. You know, the president said that people should be wary of coups, not to destabilize our political climate. So, coup, according to him, is one, and I think that's quite interesting, you know. And in fact, because I was a moderator in the, I think I said we maybe journalists will have a headline, and I've already seen one already in Vanguard, you know, that coup is one of the drivers of this
and of course, President Tinubu has not missed any opportunity to emphasize and underscore the need for African leaders to get their act together, you know, in order to avoid this incessant coups, especially around the Sahel, region. So, for a country like Nigeria, that, you know, every now and again we keep hearing the borders are porous and what have you. Only recently, yesterday, as a matter of fact, you know, the customs intercepted you know, trucks of ammunition, arms and ammunition. The Nigerian army too, the same thing. I mean, they came through the Idiroko border and what have you. What can Nigeria do in practical terms to push back on these arms?
That comes to the issue of the consul presentation.
Right.
The representative of the CG, acting CG of the customs, said that we have over 1,000.
Over 1,000
uncontrolled.
Unmanned.
It's only 94 that is approved and controlled out of 94. So you have a large influx of arms. Not only influx of arms, you have a lot influx of unauthorized goods, you know, and we need to also liberalize some of our import duty, because some of these people go to neighboring countries to import their things and smuggle into the country. So he pointed that out. So it's one of the issues I think the government should look at.
Nigerian criminals are heavily involved in drug trafficking, shipping heroin from European countries, from Asia to European countries to America, and money laundering. These are like two elephants in the room, yet again. Have they come to stay, or is there a way out at all?
Well, it comes again to that issue of economy, the economic problems. Everybody is looking for ways to survive. That's not justifying this issue of money laundering, and because some of the people who are laundering money, like political elites, who have this money, launder, it's not that they're looking for money or they're looking for jobs. They are not poor, but they want to, you know, this blind acquisition of wealth, looking for something you don't need, and they begin to stack away this money. I was reading in the paper that 400 billion was recovered in somebody's account. Why do you need that kind of money, for God's sake? I think it's pure madness.
You can say that again.
And I think I think I also want to suggest to government that instead of going the whole rigors of this trial process in the court, if you establish that you have this amount of money, why don't you negotiate with the president, plea bargain, and bring back this part of money for us to work? Because we need money in this country. There's no money. We're living on loans, and we'll continue to borrow. And they say he who borrows
goes a-sorry. Right. Now let's even explore further that point that you made about, you know, politicians. When I asked about the drivers of organized crime, I would have expected that politicians would actually be
the backbones.
Exactly.
The
How do you even address it from that angle? Because you hear from cultists, you hear from area boys that they're armed by politicians.
Puppet masters.
But that is the plain truth. You see these politicians, you know, they influence our youths. And it comes to a point that you ask somebody now, maybe in a secondary school, leaving secondary school, and they ask, what do you want to do? He said, I want to go into 419. I want to go into Ponzi. I want to go into politics or religion.
Right.
The quickest way to make money now is either religion or politics, or you go into fraud. And that's not good for our country. You see,
but organized crime is not peculiar to Nigeria. It's not a Nigerian thing. It's a global.
It's a global thing.
How can Nigeria address it from that global angle?
Provision of basic amenities for
There
the
you
people.
go.
That we need to provide basic amenities to the people. If you don't have, I mean, there are basic things that people will require. I was reading, it's in the public domain that you want to influence how many families, 12,000 with 12 million families with 8,000. What does that?
Well, the president has called for a review of that particular figure, but
we don't need all those issues of palliatives. Get our refineries working. Do other things that our transportation. Nobody is interested in making, in bringing all this money, putting money in the pocket. If the basic amenities, health, education is provided, then people will go about their business.
Right. Mike Ejiofor, security expert and former director, Department State Services. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.